Thank you very much.
So, dear devotees, once again, please accept my respectful obeisances. We welcome you all to this new unit in the sections of our study of Bhagavatam, specifically Bhakti Vaibhava, Unit 8. So we're starting the new unit with our new teacher. For those of us who might probably do not know him, is by name Sri Adwaita Krishna Prabhu. Adwaita Krishna Prabhu is a disciple of Srila Bhakti Shari Swami and then a Shisha disciple of Srila Bhakti Peter Swami Krishna Prabhu. Is by Srila Gurudev left the planet, he gave specific instructions that he should assist West Africa in helping to develop different areas of devotional service. Although he's extremely very busy, he has a lot of areas of teachings he's been involved in for several years, but we have insisted and pressured for him to spare some time to help us, and he has graciously agreed to come here. He does Bhagavatam, Bhakti Sastri at different levels on his own personal platform. He also studies, teaches at VIHE in India and also Mayapur Institute at different times. So an experienced teacher who is vast in the area of our Vedic studies, especially the Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya. So I'm very absolutely sure that we will be having a very interesting moment while we study under him. Adwaita Krishna Prabhu, you're welcome.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, Shadika Prabhu, thank you so much.
So before we go, I will maybe probably ask the students to introduce themselves. We are about 9 of us on this course, but here presently now, We are having just about 5 of us here. I'm hoping some of the other students will still join before we go too far in the class. So the student, I request you to unmute yourself one by one and introduce yourself so Prabhu can get to know you before he continues with the class. Starting from Madhvan Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. It's a pleasure to have you. And my name is Madhvan. I'm Temple President of Ibadan, Nigeria. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Madhvan Prabhu. Tamala Krishna Prabhu. Good. We are still not hearing you. We can't hear you, Tamala Krishna. You are unmuted, but I don't know what's happening. We can't hear you. I think some challenge is there. We can't hear you.
Oh.
No. It went off again.
Hare Krishna.
Right. Yes, we can hear you now. It's still off again. It's off again. We can hear you.
It's okay.
Yeah, it's okay now.
Yes, my name is Krishna. Yes, I'm a servant of Prabhu. Yes.
Yeah, you did.
Come again?
Yeah, you did. Yeah.
Yes, Ghana, Govinda Temple, Ghana, Accra.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
Okay, Jyoti Sharu Prabhu, please introduce yourself.
Unmute.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, sorry, I didn't notice. I was muted. Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Yeah, Prabhuji, this is Jyoti Swarup Das. Prabhuji, I'm Indian by body, but I'm living in Ghana. So,
Okay.
yeah, we are very fortunate to have you here. Hare Krishna. I'm a disciple of Bhakti Damodar Swami Maharaj.
Jai, Haribol.
Hare Krishna.
A very good friend.
Okay. I think she can't remember. Okay. Kamalasha Prabhu has dropped. I think the other person I'm seeing online now is I think it's Chitan Prema Prabhu himself. Chitan Prema Prabhu, can you say one or two things before Prabhu starts? Chitan Prema Prabhu, we're just doing an introduction. I know you are a coordinator and the director, minister. So if you're not too busy, you can unmute for a moment and introduce. We're doing introduction. Okay, if it's not, probably it's not a further delay. You can go ahead with it.
Okay. So could you also send me the MIHE program? Because I follow the VIHE program.
Okay.
So you can also send me the MIHE program. It's all the same, it's just the groupings, the subject, the unit assignment is different. So I would like to, you can send it to me in soft copy and I have a look, but today we'll get to know the devotees. Yeah. So how many devotees we have registered in who has followed the first and second canto?
We are 9, according to the register, according to the Minister of Education, but candidly, we have been having inconsistency from the student attendance, but the 4 or 5 students you see here are very, very regular in their attendance. The other devotees that are not here is Kamalacha Prabhu from Nigeria, the president of Bori Temple. Kamalacha Prabhu. And then the other student I know is what's his name now? Yadunath Prabhu. Yadunath Prabhu is the regional secretary for ISKCON Nigeria. National Council chairman, sorry. And he's also on this course, but somehow or the other, he has not been very steady in the classes. I've called him to try and join. I hope he will join. These are the devotees from Nigeria. The other students are from Ghana. So.
Okay, good. So, okay, I will start, and I generally follow the. Okay, thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to share this beautiful teachings of Srimad Bhagavatam with all of you. And third canto, status quo, it's very nice. And each of the teachers, they have their own style of teaching, and sometimes it gets used to it. But I'm just very informal in my approach, but at the same time, I like to be very structured in my presentation, and making sure that everyone knows at what section we're talking about, so that it becomes a little bit more easy for everyone to follow. But in terms of interaction, I would like to ask all the students to feel free to ask anytime any questions you want, and any difficulties you have, let's just be open. I would like to make a point about Srimad Bhagavatam. I'm not organized today. This is a little bit impromptu for me also, because now we're in Kartik, and every evening coming back home at 11 o'clock and going to the temple early in the morning. So it's been tough for me. But we will start today, and we will organize so that we can glorify Srimad Bhagavatam, and we can also approach it in a very prayerful mood, because that's the most important thing for us to do. And pray to Shukadeva Goswami, pray to Vyasadeva, pray to Narad Muni, Brahmaji, and our Guru Parampara. And obviously we pray to Srila Prabhupada, who has given us this wonderful purport without which studying Srimad Bhagavatam would have been impossible. So I'd like to thank all of you, and hopefully we can stay the course. It's quite an intense program, Bhakti Vaibhava, and Srila Prabhupada has written 22,000 pages of literature, Srimad Bhagavatam being his most important contribution, and you all know that. And whichever way you want to read Srimad Bhagavatam, it's all very, very nice. But when we decide to read it systematically, Srila Prabhupada at least 3-4 different places has said that we should study Srimad Bhagavatam systematically from the beginning, with the help of a devotee of Krishna, just like he said for Bhagavad Gita. So it does make a big difference, and because Srimad Bhagavatam is like an ocean, and if you dive into an ocean, you can never actually list all the things you see, and some of the things that obviously jump to your eyes and you can keep in your mind. But as you go deeper, there are layers and layers of understanding of this deep philosophy of Srimad Bhagavatam, this Tattva, this Purana, Bhagavad Purana, because simply it is a representation of Krishna. And as Krishna is unlimited, the Srimad Bhagavatam also is unlimited. So there are very gratifying, satisfying messages to be had, and some wonderful philosophy, katha we can discover in the Srimad Bhagavatam. So as I don't have the manual, the unit 1 will consist of what exactly, Prabhu?
Yeah, okay, I will share okay, you want me to start from the unit 1? I can share.
No, sorry, the unit.
I've shared with you I'm supposed on WhatsApp the soft copy of the 2 books.
Send it to my
for this.
Send it to my email or WhatsApp. Yeah.
This is the content of unit 8.
Unit 8.
It's Canto 3, chapters 1 to 4, titled Vidura, Maitreya, Uddhava, and Krishna.
Okay, fine.
So
that's all there is. There is nothing else explained. Go down.
No, it goes further. It gives the overview here what is to be studied, lessons 1, cantos 3, 1 to 2. Lesson 2 is cantos 3, chapter 3. And the lesson 3 is canto 3, chapter 4. Then it goes further to break it down, giving us an overview of what we are going to be in details. So it's going to canto 3, chapter 1, questions by Vidura. And it listed the 10 questions. I will allow you to coordinate that how you wish. And it gives idea of where to find the information. Describe the incident which caused the war of Kurukshetra and all of that. Then it goes to the analogies of Prabhupada that is within the chapter 1. And then it goes further, chapter 1. Then it gives the overview. That is the model of MIC. So after that, they give the overview of the chapter canto 3.
And the students, they have all this information.
All of the students have this book with them. So verses 1 to 6, what it talks, 17 to 24, 25 to 45. Then what is expected to be discussed there is given after that. Then it goes further to chapter 2. The same models of the way of systematic study of chapter 1.
Okay.
Then it goes to the same thing, analogies in chapter 2. Then it goes
Fine.
to
Okay,
the,
I get it. I get it. Get it. Okay. All right. All right. Because the breakdowns are slightly different for different institute we teach. So it's nice. This is a MIH program, right?
Yes.
Okay, Prabhuji, thank you so much. Hare Krishna. Yeah, thank you so much. So I can take it from here. Fine. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So we will start with the third canto, status quo, questions by Vidura, text 1. And we will explain as we go along the subject breakdown, and then we will go through different teachings in the purport. What we will do is sometimes when the verses are very important, we will read the Sanskrit, but generally we will read most of the Sanskrit, and we will not go into synonyms and word meaning, but we will go into translation and purport. And as we go on, we will try to explain what is happening and what are the important philosophical points to remember, and so on and so forth. Okay? Thank you so much. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskrityam Naram Chaiva Narotamam Deving Saraswating Vyasam Tato Jayam Muthirayet. Nastaprayeshva Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya. Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhakti Bhavati Naishtiki. Kandaraja Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. So we're reading text 1. Okay, I will read the text 1, and then I generally do after that my Mangalacharan prayers to the Supreme Lord and the Guru Parampara. Sri Sukha Uvacha Evam Mitat Pura Prishto Maitreyo Bhagavan Kila Kshatravanam Pravishtena Tyaktva Swagriham Riddhimat. You can make me host, and I'd like to go at my own pace. Otherwise, it become very difficult for me if you do that, because I read from my thing, and they have to have the information there. They all have the Bhagavatam.
Yes, what I do,
Yes.
what we do, yeah, they all have it. But what we do is depending on the teacher. I've given you co-host first. You can share. You can share as you wish. I've already
Yes.
given you co-host. But as we go along, each and everyone asks. But for those who don't have, sometimes the teachers request me to share. So I share. But if you want to share, you can go ahead and share.
Yeah, I mean, it's better, because otherwise I'll have to be thinking free. I have to look at my iPad. I have to think of the students and I have to think of you. I cannot do that. I have to be able to be
Yeah, so
free
it's better
to
you
run the course. Yeah. Okay.
Please go
So
ahead. You already have
if you all have if you have all the information, then that's fine. All right. Then we will just have to take it like that. And next week I will prepare all the breakdowns and everything, and I will upload it. So that just going through that thing is also it blocks the communication because it's a lot of volume in there. So I rather just be free to do as I wish on the course and not have a second control panel which I have to worry about. Okay. Hare Krishna. Thank you. Sri Sukha Uvacha Evam Vitat Pura Prishto Maitreyo Bhagavan Kila Shatravanam Pravishtena Tyaktva Swakrinam Riddhimat. Sukadeva Goswami said, after renouncing his prosperous home and entering the forest, King Vidura, the great devotee, asked this question of His Grace Maitreya Rishi. So let us see. So I will ask different devotees to read, sometimes a translation and sometimes a purport, and I will intervene and explain. Okay, so now text 2. What else is there to say about the residential house of the Pandavas? Sri Krishna, the Lord of everything, acted as your minister. He used to enter that house as if it were his own, and he did not take any care of Duryodhana's house. So we carry on reading. There's not much to say. It's very easy, very direct. Okay, read the purport. According to the Gaudiya Achinta Bheda Bheda Tattva philosophy, anything which satisfies the senses of the Supreme Lord, Sri Krishna, is also Sri Krishna. So, according to Gaudiya Achinta Bheda Bheda Tattva philosophy, anything which satisfies the senses of the Supreme Lord, Sri Krishna, is also Sri Krishna. Can anyone try to explain what that means? Give an example.
I can try. I can try.
Yeah. Go on.
Bhagavad Gita Krishna says, Prasham Pusham Palantoyan, Bhakti Prayashati. If one offers me leave, water, I'm satisfied. And so because it's Krishna's, that pleases Krishna, we offer that to Krishna, it becomes Krishna's, and like the prasadam, it becomes part of Krishna. So so from this text, I think what Krishna is saying that like we take prasadam as Krishna. Prasadam is not just some food when it is offered to Krishna. So whatever is offered to Krishna that Krishna accepts becomes Krishna. So the example is that of prasadam. So that's what I can think about as we read this.
Yeah. If you look at the verse, Krishna accepted that house as his own. Exactly. So because if Krishna accepted it as his own, right, it is actually of the same nature as Krishna. Because it is the same nature of Krishna, it means that may be material energy, but if Krishna accepts it as his own, is no more material energy, it's spiritual energy. Now the other angle of understanding is even the material energy is Krishna's energy. But to understand that statement of Achinta Bheda Bheda, where he says anything that is satisfying to the senses of the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna is also Sri Krishna, right? This is a very deep statement. So Prabhupada is explaining here. For example, Sri Vrindavan Dham is non-different from Sri Krishna because at Vrindavan, the Lord enjoys the transcendental bliss of his internal potency. So everything in Vrindavan, which is a manifestation of Krishna's energy. Why does Prabhupada quote the Achinta Bheda Bheda Tattva? Because our philosophy is we experience Krishna through his energies. If Krishna did not represent himself through his energies and he stayed in the spiritual world, how would we experience him? How do you experience Krishna? How do you experience the sun? Through the rays, through the heat and the light. So similarly, we experience Krishna through his energies. This is our philosophy, the philosophy of Shakti Parinamavad. Lord Krishna, he transformed. Parinam means the result or the transformation of energy. So Krishna's own Swarup Shakti. Krishna's own Swarup Shakti is Chit Shakti, Hladini Shakti, Sandhini Shakti. His own personal Swarup Shakti is manifested as, for example, devotional service. So when we experience Krishna in sadhana bhakti, it is because of his manifestation of his energy. So why Prabhupada is quoting Achinta Bheda Veda Tattva? Because Krishna's energy are the same as Krishna, but they're different to Krishna. So how we conceive it, very difficult. Very difficult to conceive something like that. Either you think, okay, Krishna's energy, or you think Krishna's himself. But his, and either I see his energy as being him, or I see him as being him. But at the same time, being him and not being him. That's called a Chinta Bheda Veda Tattva. It's sometimes inconceivable. The psychological test of something that is inconceivable. I don't know. I have it here to understand what is inconceivable. It's not so easy. Sometimes we say it. Let me see if I have the maybe I have. No, it'll just take me time. I'm just not. There's a very beautiful scheme. I have it on my computer, but I don't know where I saved it. Just wait a minute. Let me see if I can find it. No, I'm not finding it. It's a very interesting psychological diagram where you look at it and you see a vase or you see two faces. And when your mind moves to seeing the vase, and then you move your mind to seeing the two faces, you cannot see the two at the same time. So this is what's called inconceivable. You can either conceive the vase or you can conceive the two faces. So it's very difficult to actually understand. Only by the mercy of Krishna we can understand this inconceivable, because it's called achintya. The most important word in it is simultaneously one and different. So the Krishna's entering the house as his own. Was it his own? That house that he was entering, was it his house? Everything belongs to him, so it is his house. But it was the house of the Kauravas. But at the same time, it is a manifestation of his energy, so it is his house. But at the same time, Krishna is in his spiritual abode. That is his home. So how come this is his house? So either you see it one way or the other way, right? That's called inconceivable. But it is both true. It is his house and it is not his house. It is Krishna's energy, but it is not directly Krishna's. So here it is said that, but anything that satisfies him. Prabhupada is taking it from the rasa angle, from the tattva angle. That if something is satisfying to Krishna, then that is his. And the material energy is his energy, but he has nothing to do with it. So therefore, from that angle, we have to understand this Achintya Veda Veda here. So it is mentioned here that the Lord identified the house with his own self. Thus, the house of the Pandavas was as good as Vrindavan. And Vidura should not have given up that place of transcendental bliss. Because Krishna use the house as his own. He would come and go. He would sit in a room, and he would sit and talk to Draupadi. He would sit and joke and play with Arjuna. So that was his own house. Therefore, the reason for his quitting the house was not exactly family misunderstanding. And Vidura knew that Krishna was very fond of the house and the home of the Pandavas. So Vidura took the opportunity to meet Rishi Maitreya and discuss transcendental knowledge. Now we know that Vidura, he left the house. And we will read more into that. It's very interesting how he left the house. We will read into that more. Okay? And then he left the house actually before the Battle of Kurukshetra. And then he came back again. He came back again. So we will study that as we progress. Therefore, the reason for his quitting his house was not exactly family misunderstanding. Rather, Vidura took the opportunity to meet Rishi Maitreya and discuss transcendental knowledge. For a saintly person like Vidura, any disturbance due to worldly affairs is significant. Such disturbances, however, are sometimes favorable for higher realization, and therefore Vidura took advantage of a family misunderstanding in order to meet Maitreya Rishi. So the misunderstanding was actually with Duryodhan. So we will come into that. So so this Sukadev Goswami spoke about Vidura's renouncing the home. This is text 1 and 2. So I don't know whether you devotees take notes, but I think you should always take notes. It's important. I mean, I take a lot of notes. This is my 4th canto notes. This is my 3rd canto notes. You know, you should take notes. You should have your book, but you should take notes. And you can write important points with the text. Just write, you have a margin. You have a margin. And you create a margin and you can write the text and you can put the important notes on the right, you know, and you can put the date. And I mean, it's good to have that. Otherwise, it becomes very casual. So you see, and you make your notes, you write the text, and then you say, okay, this is what it is. And then when you start the section, you can say, okay, for example, I just said something. 1 and 2, Shukadev Goswami spoke about Viduri's renouncing home. This is what he's dealing with, these 2 verses. Just like when we studied Bhakti Shastri. So now, Raja Uvacha, so Parikshit Maharaj is speaking. And the text 3 and 4, Parikshit Maharaj inquires about Vidura and Maitreya Samvad. Okay, there is an interesting that goes on here, which is called the Vidura Maitreya Samvad. And as of usual, Parikshit Maharaj is inquiring from Shukadev Goswami. Okay, so the king asked Sukadeva Goswami, where and when did the meeting and discussion take place between Saint Vidura and His Grace Maitreya? Kindly oblige my lord and describe this to us. So the purport, please get ready to read. All of you should read when I ask. So, and it has to go flow and we don't have to break too much time. And also this will make sure that you have your books in front of you. You have your notes and you're following. So purport, exactly as Shonak Rishi inquired of Suta Goswami and Suta Goswami replied to Srila Sukadeva Goswami, replied to King Parikshit inquiries. The king was very anxious to understand the meaningful discussion that took place between the 2 great souls. So there is a very interesting discussion between Vidura and Maitreya. It's called Vidura Maitreya Samvad. Samvad, there's many Samvad. Can any of you give me examples of Samvad? For example, famous Samvad in Chaitanya Charitamrita or in Srimad Bhagavatam?
Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu with Ramananda Rai.
Yes, Chaitanya Ramananda Rai Samvad. It's very famous. Anything else from Srimad Bhagavatam? First canto?
Vyasadeva and the Narad Muni.
Yes, Vyasadeva and Narad Muni Samvad. Right, very interesting Samvad. Okay. So Samvad means a discussion. Okay, when one person takes up the position of a spiritual master or senior, and he's teaching. The other one is asking questions. Okay, so here the question is put. Where and when did the meeting and discussion take place between Vidura and Maitreya Muni? Okay, let's read the purport. Someone can read?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Yes, please read.
Okay. So the purport, text 3. Questions and answers among different classes of men have different value. Inquiries by mercantile men in a business exchange cannot be expected to be highly purposeful in spiritual values.
Where is that, Prabhuji? Where are you reading?
We're reading 4.
I'm reading. Okay, 4. Okay, I'm supposed to read 3.
Read 3, Prabhu.
3. Okay, for 3. Exactly as Sunak Rishi inquired of Sutta Goswami, and Sutta Goswami replied. So Srila Sukadev Goswami replied to King Parishit's inquiries. The king was very anxious to understand the meaningful discussion that took place between the two great souls.
Okay.
Hare Krishna.
So we will read now text 4, and I'll just read the translation. Saint Vidura was a great and pure devotee of the Lord, and therefore his questions to His Grace Rishi Maitreya must have been very purposeful, on the highest level, and approved by learned circles. Okay, so so we'll read the purport. Question and answers among different classes of men have different value. Inquiries by mercantile men in business exchange cannot be expected to be highly purposeful in spiritual values. Question and answers by different classes of men can be guessed by the caliber of the persons concerned. In Bhagavad Gita, the discussion was between Lord Sri Krishna and Arjuna, the Supreme Person and the Supreme Devotee, respectively. The Lord admitted Arjuna to be his devotee and friend. Bhagavad Gita 4:3. Anyone remember that verse?
Yes. Saivayammayati dvam yoga patta parantapa bhaktu simev sakaseti rahasya he itad utaman. That
Right.
the very science of the relationship between the Supreme Lord. Krishna said it is today told by me to you, because you are my devotee as well as my friend, and can therefore understand the transcendental mystery of this science.
So therefore, any sane man can guess that the discussion was on the topic of Bhakti Yoga system. Bhaktosmi Saka Achiti Rahasyamitadutamam. The qualification for understanding the spiritual subject matter of the Gita, Krishna puts in this verse 4:3. Right? That to understand, you have to be my devotee and you have to be inclined towards me favorably. Arjuna was inclined towards Krishna as a friend. There's a difference between karma and karma yoga. Karma is regulated action for the enjoyment of the fruit by the performer, but karma yoga is action performed by the devotees for the satisfaction of the Lord. So what makes a difference is the idea of yoga. Every single chapter in the Bhagavad Gita is yoga. It is not just a chapter on a particular category of knowledge. It is actually yoga. Even the first one is called Arjuna Vishad Yoga. That means that Arjuna is in the dilemma, the difficulties of Arjuna. It is called yoga. Why is the first chapter called Arjuna Vishad Yoga? Can anyone try to explain? Because even in his difficulty, the idea is Arjuna was attempting to connect with Krishna. But we can have Vishada, means difficulties, dilemmas, problems. But the first one, sometimes some scholars criticize, why is it called yoga, Vishada Yoga? Because when we are in difficulty, we are experiencing problems, we incline towards the Supreme Lord, then that is yoga. When Maya is kicking us in the material world, and we go about our own manner of living, and we suffer, and we have so many issues, so many problems, then that is not yoga. But if Maya is actually causing us trouble, and then we incline towards Krishna because somehow we have mercy, we have knowledge that the Lord can help us, then all the problems that we have, starting right at the beginning, can be resolved by the linking process of devotional service. So even initially, how is it not yoga? Because the idea is to link. Someone comes to Krishna consciousness being pushed by material nature, being actually sent to degrees of suffering that becomes unbearable. They look for a different option out, and they come to Krishna consciousness. So that suffering is yoga. It's pushing them down Krishna. So Arjuna Vishadi Yoga, that's the reason it is even considered yoga. Why is all the explanation of karma, different characteristic qualities of karma, Nishkam karma, Sakama karma, Vikarma, and it is called karma yoga because we are attempting to link with Krishna through performing our different activities. So karma yoga is explained like that. But karma yoga can also be not bhakti. But here karma yoga Prabhupada specifically says is based on bhakti or pleasing the Lord. The idea of pleasing the Lord through our activities or giving result of activities is considered preliminary attempt at bhakti or pleasing the Lord. Yeah, you have your hands up. You want a question?
Yes, Prabhu, I just wanted to ask this aspect we are discussing. As you're discussing this point, and I'm thinking about Srila Prabhupada's struggle, the Prabhupada's anxiety he has to go through, got instructions from his spiritual master in 1922, and 22 to 1965 is a whole lot of time. And then it was captured by Saswarupa Goswami as a lifetime in preparation. And within this period, Prabhupada went through so much. It's also about over 4 decades. And Prabhupada was going through a whole lot of challenges, family life, business challenges, personal challenges. And you can imagine the whole period of 40 years in the life of a person. And in our own present devotional life, I'm trying to reconcile. Prabhupada is a pure devotee. Does Krishna ask that? Does Krishna give that kind of a to ordinary conditions? Because for pure devotee, yes, we can understand Prabhupada to take it for 40 years. But for ordinary devotee, is it also possible that Krishna could stretch the time of, because Arjuna didn't have to go. Arjuna was on the spot and he got an answer. So but in our practical devotional life, we also go through different challenges of different kinds. So my question is,
yes, go on.
Yeah. So my question is then, to what extent does Krishna test a condition so like us? Because the Prabhupada is different. We can understand. Arjuna was on the spot. In our conditional life, trying to do devotional service, we go through challenges. To what extent do we realize that this is Krishna's testing us or putting us through challenges to get to him? Or maybe it's our Maya.
Well, there's two ways to look at it. Maya is also doing the same job as Krishna wants her to do. Maya, when you look at the Samadhi Darshan of Vyasadeva in relationship to worshipping the Supreme Lord and getting the mercy to write Srimad Bhagavatam, the darshan that was given to him, and it's in the 7th chapter, 1st canto, text I think 4 onwards to text 8 or 9, he actually saw Maya standing as a person, but very much ashamed. So why did Vyasadeva actually have that kind of darshan? Because why was Maya Devi, the energy of Krishna who is responsible for putting us under this avidya, why was she in lajja, like bashful? That's the word. She was bashful because she doesn't like doing this service. So we have to understand that it is the whole. If you have to look at it globally. That's why I'm saying you have two ways to look at it. If even for the conditioned soul who has not come to Krishna consciousness. The reason for creating this world is for reformatory. So the suffering is also to push towards ultimately coming towards the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. Isn't it? So we have to look at it like that. But for devotees, especially for devotees, now we've already been given the path of devotional service, then definitely all our difficulties is actually Krishna's arranging for us to get closer and closer to him. Only difference is if our activities and our sufferings as a result of aparat, then that is different. But material nature is testing us and is pushing us, and we have to see it as like that. Now, and it may or it may not be, but it behooves us to see it like that. That's the most important point. Because if we see it otherwise, then we are not resolute in the path of devotion. If you have a difficulty, if you have a problem, if you have an issue, if you had a fall down, if you do not see it as Krishna's mercy, if you do not see it as Krishna's signal to try to go deeper and connect with him, then that means that we have other paths that we are considering. Right? And we have other options, but we don't have other options. This is an option that is there. This is a compulsory line that we follow. Okay, so according to Srimad Bhagavatam, I'm reading here. According to Srimad Bhagavatam, one is advised to approach a bona fide spiritual master when one is actually inclined to question from an elevated level of spiritual understanding. Right? So a common man has no spiritual value, has no need to approach a spiritual master, just as a matter of following fashion. So Canto answers a little bit of the question too, because if someone is not interested in pursuing a spiritual life, then he doesn't have to approach a spiritual master. But someone who has interest in spiritual life, he does approach a spiritual master and follow the path of devotional service. And Prabhupada says here, we should not accept a spiritual master just as a matter of fashion. It is fashionable, okay, have a guru. And at some point, it was a great fashion in the United States. It probably still is for some people who are inclined in a pious way, but who wants to use Krishna Bhakti. They want to use Vedic religious principles for upgrading ourselves. So that's a problem. Okay. As a student, Maharaj Parikshit was serious about learning the science of God, and Sukadeva Goswami was a bona fide spiritual master in the transcendental science. Both of them knew the topics discussed by Vidura and Rishi Maitreya were elevated, and thus Maharaj Parikshit was very interested in learning from the bona fide spiritual masters. Very straightforward and simple. Maharaj Parikshit, was learning the science of God from Sukadeva Goswami, and Sukadeva Goswami was his spiritual master. Of course, Parikshit Maharaj did not take initiation from Sukadeva Goswami, but then that Shiksha, he was completely following him. So both of them knew the topics discussed by Vidura and Maitreya were very elevated because of the caliber of these people. Maitreya Rishi and Vidura are not going to talk anything that is not related to Krishna consciousness and devotional life. So Maharaj Parikshit was very interested in learning from the bona fide spiritual master. So you see here, you notice, and if someone argue, oh, is Parikshit Maharaj bona fide spiritual master Sukadeva Goswami? Then that is there. 3rd canto, 1st chapter, last line of the purport, Prabhupada says, Parikshit was interested in learning from the bona fide spiritual master. So Sukadeva Goswami is his bona fide spiritual master. Initiation, no initiation. So that's what I'm saying. Sit peacefully, enjoy the ride. Srimad Bhagavatam is a wonderful odyssey. And just so many things you can Even though when something is so simple, and if you go through it again, you will notice something that will become a reference point for you. And that's Srimad Bhagavatam. But we have to be committed to being very peacefully seated at our desk and reading cautiously, carefully, and writing. Sutta Uvacha. Okay, Sutta Uvacha. Saivam Rishivaryoyam Pristoragna Parikshita Pratyahatam Subahuvit Pritatma Shayatam Iti. Sri Sutta Goswami said, Great sage Sukadev Goswami was highly experienced and was pleased with the king. Thus, being questioned by the king, he said to him, Please hear the topic attentively. So, this is story within a story. Sutta Goswami is narrating to Shanak Rishi and the sages in Naimisharanya. So, that narration comes from him, the Maitreya Vidura Samvad. So, okay, Sishuka Vacha. So, I'm now reading the text 6, okay? So, you may follow. Yada tu rajaswasutam asadhun pushnam na dharmena vinastadishti bhraturyasistasya sutan vibandhun pravesya laksha bhavane tadaha. Sri Sukadeva Goswami said, King Dhritarashtra became blind under the influence of impious desires to nourish his dishonest sons, and thus he set fire to the lacquer house to burn his father's nephews, the Pandavas. So Dhritarashtra was blind from birth, but his blindness of committing impious activities to support his dishonest son was a greater blindness, and his physical lack of eyesight. The physical lack of eyesight does not bar one from spiritual progress. You can be blind physically, but you can be spiritually awakened. But one is blind spiritually, even though physically fit, that blindness is dangerously detrimental. So he was blind both physically and he was blind as well spiritually. Okay. So that was the position of Dhritarashtra. What was the main reason for his blindness, the spiritual blindness?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Let's go on.
Because he's blind because he was partial and he wasn't in the mode of goodness. So
That's a generic rule, but specifically. Because of his too much attachment to his sons. And he was blinded by too much affection for Duryodhana and his sons. And therefore he was looking at his own people. He was in the bodily conception of life and he was looking at as his own people. And sometimes even Arjuna, when he says to Krishna, he says, Swajanam, he says, I am too much worried about my own people also going to die in this. Prabhupada I don't have the reference, but Prabhupada made a very nice lecture about this. He said, how come those who are on your side are your people? What about the other side? They're not your people? So Dhritarashtra was thinking Swajanam, my own people. He was too much attached to his own people. But at one point, even Krishna, he chastised Arjuna. He actually chastised Arjuna. He said to Arjuna, why are you thinking about your own people? The other people are not your side. In the first chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, when he says, I can't take it like this. This is going to be on all my own people. So if you think about Arjuna's fighting on a spiritual level, he was not so much concerned about all the people who's going to die, because how do we bodily conception again? So the difference is there. Arjuna was not like that, but Dhritarashtra was very much like that, very much concerned about his own people. That was the reason of his blindness. And obviously, in the mode of goodness, like Prabhu says, there's knowledge. And if we have in the mode of goodness as knowledge, we will not look at it like this. But he was influenced by the mode of passion and ignorance. Therefore, he was attached. Okay, text 7. So here, here the explanation in the text 6, 7, 8, and 9 is actually explaining the atrocities of Dhritarashtra and his party. 6, 7, 8, and 9. Explaining about the atrocities of Dhritarashtra and his party. Okay, let's see what the text 7 says. The king did not forbid his son Dushashan's abominable action of grabbing the hair of Draupadi, the wife of the godly king Yudhishthira, even though her tears washed the red dust on her breast. So this is very heavy. And Dushashan dragged Draupadi into the assembly of the Kurus. And only by prayer to the Supreme Lord that she was saved by Krishna. And this is probably the most
last one will still
abominable.
come. From this place, this year to next year, levels will change.
Sorry for that, Chetan.
Yeah, the king did not forbid his son Dushashan's abominable action. He said nothing. He kept quiet. And the Kauravas, including Bhishma, including Drona, they kept quiet. And that was probably the central pivot, the central point for the destruction of the whole Kuru dynasty, because they insulted a chaste lady. So text 8, any questions, comments, anyone? We have to stay on the topic, subject matter, but we can go side a little bit to understand. No? All right. The devotees' practice of reading Sanskrit is okay so far?
I think there's need for more.
We'll come to that. We can't do everything slowly. So we're reading text. Prabhu, anyone can read text 8, the translation?
Dhritarashtra, who was born without any enemy, was unfairly defeated in gambling. But because he had taken the vow of truthfulness, he went off to the forest. When he came back in due course and begged the return of his rightful share of the kingdom, he was refused by Dhritarashtra, who was overwhelmed by illusion.
So, Yudhishthira, he was born without enemy because he was a very just person. He was a very saintly person, right? And saintly people don't have enemies. There's a very beautiful kirtan on the Goswamis. Anyone can remember the first line of the Sad Goswami Astakam? What does it say? Dhira dhira jana priya priya karo nirmatsaro pujito. Both the dhira, and those who are nice people, and the adhira, the ruffians, proper translated like that. Both the good people and the ruffians, they were all very dear. They were all attracted and they were very dear to the 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan because they had no envy. So when someone is not envious, they actually do not see anyone as enemy. So Yudhishthira Maharaj, he didn't see anyone as enemy. And that's why you probably discussed in the first canto, Yudhishthira Maharaj refusal to actually accept to take the position of emperor, even after he had won the war, and he was being consoled by the elite of among the elite in society. Each one of them were taking turn every day to talk to Yudhishthira Maharaj, and he was lamenting that so much sinful activities have been committed because of my desire to become king. Duryodhana was doing okay. in a sense, and he refused to accept. So that was Yudhishthir Maharaj's character, that he refused to accept. And even daily, everyone would talk to him. Vyasadeva would talk to him, Vashishta Muni would talk to him, Narad Muni would talk to him, Pulastya Rishi would talk to him, and Somya and Domya Rishi would talk to him. And still he would actually be saying, no, I shouldn't have done that, because he didn't consider the importance of having the war. So he was therefore not desirous of anything material. He was a saintly person. But then when Krishna arranged for him to go talk to Yudhishthir, he agreed. He said, will you accept to go and talk to Bhishma Dev and hear his advice? And then that's how Yudhishthir Maharaj changed. But then when he was sent to the kingdom, after his exile, when he came back, they asked for his share of the kingdom, and he was refused. And Duryodhana said, I will not give you enough land to put the head, of a needle. He said, we are Kshatriyas, at least give us 5 villages. He said, we are not going to give you enough land to put a needle, the head of a needle in. So then the war was declared because of that. So at last the Pandavas demanded only 5 villages, 1 for each of the 5 brothers, but that was also refused. The incident led to the war of Kurukshetra, right? So a Kshatriya, the proper livelihood of the Pandavas was only to rule and not to accept any other occupation. A Kshatriya, a Brahmana, a Kshatriya, and a Vaishya will not accept employment for his livelihood under any circumstances. They will not accept employment for their livelihood under any circumstances. And that is just normally the standard of behavior of a Brahmana, of a Kshatriya, or a Vaishya. Any questions? Any comments? Anyone want to add something? Any reflection on this?
Devotees, feel free.
Yeah.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Yes, Prabhuji.
My question, I just wonder why the terrestrials are so unfortunate, being blind physically and at the same time have to be blind spiritually. Or what is, you must have a very, I don't know, maybe been bad karma or from the past. I don't know. Right, it has to be.
But you have to go to the history in Mahabharata to actually understand Dhritarashtra. Dhritarashtra was a very unfortunate person in a sense, but he was also fortunate in another sense because he had the association of Krishna. It's a pastime storyline. But Dhritarashtra had committed some very, very long time ago. He had actually killed 100 birds, the babies, while he was hunting. And therefore, he came to this unfortunate situation where he had to have 100 sons and they were killed as a result of that. So once he did ask, I don't know who he asked, but I don't have much information on it, but did he ask, why is it that I have to pay such bad karma for losing 100 sons? He said, because of this, but just for killing some birds? He said, yes. And he said, but why did I have to wait so long? He said, because you had to gather enough punya to come to the platform of having 100 sons to lose them finally. So yes, very unfortunate. I don't know much more about this Dhritarashtra, not an attractive character to actually study. We study Krishna more. So so I don't have much more information about him from Mahabharata. But he was born a blind king. And the reason that he was born a blind king is because his father was actually Vyasadeva. Vidura's father was Vyasadeva, and Pandu's father was Vyasadeva. Vyasadeva was not a very nice looking person. And there was a story of Bhishma Dev. If anyone knows it better than me, because I haven't brushed on it, is Bhishma Dev actually took vow not to get married ever. But then they had to produce heirs to the kingdom. And the Vyasadeva was called on. In those days, that was possible to call someone on else to actually impregnate. So they had brought these three Amba, Ambalika, and Ambika, and then one of them actually, when actually uniting with Vyasadeva, closed his eyes. She closed her eyes, and therefore Dhritarashtra was born blind. And one of them got pale. I don't know which one, Amba, Ambika, became very pale. And therefore Pandu was born pale, and he had a little bit of weakness. He was very strong in a one sense, Kshatriya-wise. He had a weakness in it, and he was pale looking. And Vidura was born of a maidservant. So he was considered to be not qualified to run the kingdom. And he was born of a maidservant. So Vidura is also half brother, so to speak, Dhritarashtra and Pandu, and so on. So we can move on, Prabhuji. So Lord Krishna was sent by Arjuna into the
Yes.
assembly as spiritual master of the whole world.
Hare Krishna.
Yes,
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. I want to ask if you said a Brahmana cannot take employment as a profession. So I want you to give some more talks on that. And we also read in the 11th canto that a Brahmana can actually take the profession of a Kshatriya if he cannot maintain himself by the profession of a Brahmana. He can take that of a Kshatriya. And,
yes.
but under no circumstance should he take that of a Shudra. In other words, taking employment from people. So I don't know. How does it relate to us? Can we take employment as devotees who are Vaishnavas trying to become Brahmana, Vaishnava Brahmanas? Can we take employment to meet up with our family responsibilities, or we should also follow suit and instead establish some business where we can manage our own time? Why should a Brahmana not take employment as an employed servant?
You see, if you in that particular purport, it says even a Kshatriya or a Vaishya. This is the breakdown of the Varnashram system. The breakdown of the Varnashram system make it that women end up going to work. That's one thing. The breakdown of the Varnashram system means that the way that society creates wealth is changed. So generally, the order, the order already. The Brahmanas are teachers, and the Kshatriyas are administrators and keeping the religious and spiritual and social order, and by giving protection to everyone. And the Vaishyas, they produce wealth. The Brahmanas are teachers. The reason is, what we have now in this situation is we don't have a functional, even though we have a pseudo Varnashram system, we don't have a functional Varnashram system. We don't actually have a Varnashram system that's functioning and operating properly where people actually train to be Brahmanas, and people are trained to be Kshatriyas and trained to be Vaishyas. Now, in the case of us, we are devotees trying to practice Krishna consciousness, right? And we're trying to use whatever means we can to maintain an honest livelihood. But it is said that the Brahmana should, maybe he can do some trade. It didn't say so much. I can't remember reading that he can take the service of a Kshatriya, but he can do some small trade. Because if the Varnashram system is not functioning, there's hardly the responsibility, there is hardly the opportunity for actually taking a service of a Kshatriya. Administrative job here and there is not actually Kshatriya duties. Administrative job is mostly skills job, assisting administrative business and this and that is actually Shudra job. So Kshatriya, Brahmana means actually teaching, training, in spiritual subject matter. So yeah, we end up doing this because we don't have a functioning Brahminical situation. Yeah, we don't have. So we do what we have to do. Utility is a principle. We do the needful, and then we practice Krishna consciousness. You want to add something else?
Okay. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. That's okay.
Okay. So text 9. So this is also 6, 7, 8, 9 explains about the atrocities of Dhritarashtra. So anyone can read the text 9, the translation?
Okay,
Hare
text
Krishna.
9.
Translation.
Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
Lord Krishna was sent by Arjuna into the assembly as a spiritual master of the whole world. And although his words were heard by some, like Brahma, as a pure nectar, it was not so for the others, who were completely bereft of the last farthing of past pious works. The king Dhritarashtra or Duryodhana did not take a word of Lord Krishna very seriously. Prabhuji, can I read purport?
Yes, go on.
Yeah. Purport. Lord Krishna, who is the spiritual master of entire universe, accepted the duty of messenger and deputed by Arjuna, went to the assembly of King Dhritarashtra on peace mission. Krishna is everyone's Lord, yet because he was the transcendental friend of Arjuna, he gladly accepted the role of messenger. Exactly like an ordinary friend, that is the beauty of Lord's behavior with his pure devotees. He reached the assembly and spoke about peace. And the message was released by Bhishma and other great leaders because it was spoken by the Lord himself. But due to the exhaustion of the pious result of their past deeds, Duryodhana or his father Dhritarashtra did not take the message very seriously. That is the way of persons who have no credit. That is the way of persons who have no credit of pious deeds. By past pious deeds, one may become a king of the country. But because the results of pious acts of Duryodhana and company were dwindling, it became evident from their action that they were sure to lose the kingdom to the Pandavas. The message of Godhead is always like a nectar to the devotees, but it is just opposite to the non-devotees. Sugar candy is always sweet to the healthy man, but it tastes very bitter to the person suffering from jaundice.
Okay, so it was kind of set in the destiny of the Kauravas that they're going to lose the kingdom because they had committed so many atrocities against devotees. They were impious in their behavior. There were two. Dhritarashtra was attached. He was very worldly. And they did not pay attention to the message of Lord Krishna, who was actually in the entire assembly available to them. And he would speak. So often he would speak. But only persons who had a relationship with him, devotional relationship with him, like Bhishma, it is mentioned here. Bhishma actually was a pure devotee of the Supreme Lord. It was the arrangement of providence. He was in the opposite camp because he had promised that he will protect the kingly order of the Kauravas. So he was doing what he had promised to do. He was very much attached to keeping his promise. but he was very affectionate towards the Supreme Lord. He was actually in Dasyaras. He was in Dasyaras with the Supreme Lord. So therefore, everything that he actually heard from the Supreme Lord was actually nectar for him. So he was actually doing his service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He was in his own way trying to do his seva for the Supreme Lord. And it's in no way an infringement in his devotional status to be situated on the other side, because his main thing was to serve the lotus feet of the Lord. And he was doing that. Even sometimes he was engaged in fighting against the Supreme Lord, but that was in his exhibition of his virya, and the Lord wanted to see him in that bhav, in that mood. But the others, they were actually not devotees of Krishna. They were not favorably inclined. Their relationships was not anukul. It was very pratikul. It was very against, very unfavorable. So therefore, they could not see the value of having Krishna in their association. So that is normally the case. The Supreme Lord is available in so many ways to everyone, through the scripture, through the devotees, through the temples, through the churches. But people are not inclined. People are not inclined because of their load of sinful activities that holds them down. So because of that, it is impossible for them to practice a favorable attitude of bhakti or devotional mood towards the Supreme Lord. So therefore, they are actually unhealthy. They are unhealthy. They have no inclination towards the Supreme Lord. So they are unhealthy. And therefore, even though they're given sweet candy, it will taste bitter. It will actually taste bitter, because they're suffering from that disease, which is called jaundice, or materialism for the materialist. So this section here, 6, 7, 8, 9, atrocities of Dhritarashtra and party. Okay. Now Vidura is advising Dhritarashtra how to behave properly. This we will read in the text 10, 11, 12, and 13. Okay. So these 4 texts actually explains how Vidura had approached Dhritarashtra. He had approached Dhritarashtra to try to correct him. So let us see. This is being narrated by Shuta Goswami to Shaunak Rishi. The samvad that had taken place between Vidura and Maitreya. Okay, and Vidura had explained this to Maitreya. And this is now being narrated, what Shuta Goswami is narrating to Shaunak Rishi, which is in turn being narrated by Sukadeva Goswami to Parikshit Maharaj. So you can understand the sequence of dialogues here. Yes, Prabhuji?
Thank you for giving the opportunity. I just wanted to ask a question in regards to Bhishma Day. In respect to this verse, this section we just finished. Duryodhan, Dhritarashtra, they've exhausted their power's credit, and therefore they could not appreciate the Lord's intervention or mercy. But personality like Bhishma Day, we also know stories of Bhishma Day, but I'm trying to relate it to practical application now. In our own lives, we read in the first canto, in the first canto, where it is said that when the Lord is not physical, when there are inauspiciousness, it expresses the absence of the Supreme Personality of God. Or when the Lord is absent, then there are, when the Dhritarashtra was talking about omens, when we're talking about the omens. So when the Lord is not physically present, there are so many bad omens, right? In our devotional life, in our individual life, sometimes we say that it is because of the bad, we could say it is bad because of our karma or bad pious activity, impious activities that we are suffering even while in devotional service. But my question is, how do we know? Because Bhishma Day clearly wasn't, I wouldn't want to know how to explain that aspect, but Bhishma Day was also caught up in that scenario whereby he knew the right thing, but he wasn't able to do the right thing due to attachment. Could you say it's a result of his attachment to his duty Or was it because taking a vow should not be superior to the will of the Supreme Personality of Godhead? So I want to understand that middle point. How do we know?
He was acting, you see, in those days, people acted according to the varnas and according to the ashram position. He was acting perfectly, and if you didn't act according to the rules of varnashram, being situated in the position of varnashram, then that would be sinful. And Krishna does say to Arjuna in the second chapter of Bhagavad Gita, if you do not perform your rightful duty, you will incur sin. So by neglecting to perform his rightful duty, he would incur sin. So his rightful duty was, he was not a sinful person. His rightful duty was to actually do what he was meant to do. So he was acting perfectly as a Kshatriya in the capacity that he was an advisor. He was given a vow to be protector of the Raja, of the king. The thing is, he was also a little bit too attached to his vow, and that was his downfall. But at the same time, wouldn't have incurred sin if he had neglected his duties. So that's a very debatable issue, because if he had sided with Krishna, and if he would have, but the perception would have been different. The perception would have been that Krishna is encouraging people not to follow Varnashram, and Krishna would not do that.
Aha. That's exactly the area I'm trying to understand, because that would have created that kind of, like you said, it is debatable subject matter. But looking down back to our own circumstances now, because Prabhupada said Vanashram, but he couldn't teach. And then when we look at Kali Yuga, it's very difficult to actually stay by Varna. Just like a follow-up even to what Chaitanya Prabhu was asking, even whether you're a Brahmana or Kshatriya, you hardly can, we don't even have those qualities in the first place. And even if we know them, it is difficult to stay in Kali Yuga as purely as a Brahmana or as a Kshatriya. It's very difficult unless a special grace. One cannot practice fully as a Brahmin. In most circumstances, you cannot practice as a full-time Kshatriya because sometimes the circumstances doesn't allow that. So in Kali Yuga, are we allowed for this purpose of transcendental activities, service to Krishna, to abandon our duty or our vows sometimes? Because also sometimes we make some vows out of ignorance or whatever.
Are we really called in to do things like that? Because if these things are sinful, then it will bring us down. Because if you're chanting and you're practicing the process of devotional service, and if you're called upon to do things that breaks our vows, which basically means regulative principles or things like that, then this will be sinful. Then if we carry on chanting the holy name of Krishna in that regard, then we will be performing offense, nam aparad. So I think it's very simple to look at it in a way, because if it is not in accordance with the vows that we have taken to follow the four regulative principles to chant 16 rounds, then we should avoid the best we can. Otherwise, it will be many things. It will be Guru Avagya. It will be, direct offenses to the holy name of Krishna, and it will hamper our advancement, right? So,
in essence, in Kali Yuga, basically, sorry for taking us back. In Kali Yuga, the Guru's instruction stands out is our regulative principles, and then it supersedes our duty as in whatever varna we find ourselves.
yeah, but also the devotee has to use his intelligence to see how he can manage and how can maintain his conditional life, because we all have these two responsibilities. It's not that we don't have, because there's one way of living is where you have to earn money, and the other way is to completely depend on Krishna. But as long as we have to earn money to earn a livelihood, then you have conditional life. Then you have to do things. But fortunately, if you are surrounded by a devotional atmosphere, if your family is a devotee and your activities are in devotional line, then it doesn't call for so much compromise. It doesn't call for so much compromise. And anyone can then dovetail everything into Krishna's service. Because it is a main essence. So we carry on. We have another 15 minutes. And okay. So we are reading now text 11. Okay. When Vidura was invited by his elder brother to Shastra for consultation, he entered the house and gave instructions which are exactly to the point. His advice is well known, and instructions by Vidura approved by expert ministers of state. So purport, political suggestions by Vidura are known as expert. They are called Vidura Niti. Sometimes Pandit Chanakya, he had his Chanakya Niti. But Vidura, he had a Vidura Niti. He was a great political scientist, and he would have given advice in so many different ways. So political suggestions by Vidura is known by expert. He was an authority in good counsel and both political and moral instructions. So he told Dhritarashtra exactly what he had to. He had asked him to do. So let us see. Text 11. Vidura, you must now return the legitimate share to Yudhishthira. That's what he told him. Now he was on the side of the Kauravas. He was minister to Dhritarashtra. But this is what he had said. Return his legitimate share. And who has no enemy and who had been forbearing through untold sufferings due to your offenses. And he put it blankly to him. Frankly. He said, you put them through untold sufferings and due to your offenses. He is waiting with his younger brothers, among whom is a revengeful Bhima. He is waiting with his younger brothers, and here a point is made about revengeful Bhima, because Bhima was very, very powerful. He had the ability to kill all of them. And he said that he is breathing heavily like a snake. He is angry and he's breathing heavily because he wants to get his own back on all of you. And you should be afraid. So he's saying to him, you should be afraid. They're very powerful people. They're incredibly, and you should be afraid. So he said like that to him. So it's direct advice. Now that is a very powerful advice to a king. And you see, they speak very little. It's not that they go on rambling and saying so many different things. These statements have been said to him. And actually, it's an important point. Now, he should just sit down and listen. So Lord Krishna, the personality of God, had accepted the sons of Pritha as his own kinsmen. And all the kings of the world are with Lord Sri Krishna. And now he's making the point. He's saying that the Pandavas are like his own kinsmen. Right? And all the kings of the world are with Lord Sri Krishna. So he's making a point. He's giving an advice on the balance of powers and the possibility that he's going to actually lose. Okay. He's present in his home with all his family members, the kings and princes of the Yadu dynasty, who have conquered an unlimited number of rulers. So the whole Narayani Sena, the whole army of Lord Sri Krishna, who was a very powerful personality. He had princes and he had the whole Yadu dynasty behind him. And they had unlimited number of rulers who was on their side. And therefore, the advice was supported by this fear factor that was induced. So this is a very important point here. Okay, so someone can read the purport.
Vidura gave Dhritarashtra very good counsel regarding political alliance with the sons of Pritha, the Pandavas. The first thing he said was that Lord Krishna was intimately related with them as their cousin, because Lord Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He is worshipable by all the Brahmanas and demigods, who are the controllers of the universal affairs. Besides that, Lord Krishna and his family members, the royal order of the Yadu dynasties, were the conqueror of all kings of the world. The Kshatriyas used to fight the kings of various dominions and kidnap their beautiful princess daughters after conquering their relatives. This system was laudable because the Kshatriyas and the princess would be married only on the basis of the chivalry of the conquering Kshatriya. All the young princes of the Yadu dynasty married the daughters of other kings in this way, by chivalrous force, and thus they were conquerors of all the kings of the world. Vidura wanted to impress upon his elder brother that fighting with the Pandavas was fraught with many dangers because they were supported by Lord Krishna, who had conquered, even in his childhood, the demons like Kamsa and Jarasandha, and demigods, like Brahma and Indra. Therefore, all universal powers was behind the Pandavas.
So he's making a very interesting point. I mean, Lord Krishna, he fought, Jarasandha attacked Krishna's army 17 times and he won. Finally, Jarasandha was torn asunder and Kamsa was defeated. So there's a whole history of very powerful kings being. So that was the last bunch of demonic personalities who had thrived under the rulership of these different personalities and different peoples were now brought together, in the situation of the Mahabharata youth. And it was important that they be removed. Krishna wanted to put Yudhishthir Maharaj in charge because he wanted, so much Yudhishthir Maharaj in charge that he had agreed to have millions killed. And anyway, killing in his presence was something else. So that was definitely a sign. But Dhritarashtra was too blind, too affected by his material affection for his son. He could not see it. And now this very good advice of Vidura was also not being taken carefully. So very interesting. So I will read the last text, 13, Vidura's advice again, and we'll come back to more discussions next time. So this is a very beautifully put. Saesha dosha puridvidashte grihan bravishto yanapatyamartya pushnasi krishnad vimukho gatashrista jasha shaiva kula koshalasya. You are maintaining offense personified. Duryodhan was offense personified as your infallible son. Why was he offense personified? Because he was envious of Lord Sri Krishna. And because you're thus maintaining a devotee of Krishna, a non-devotee of Krishna, you're devoid of all auspicious qualities. So here he's saying to him, you have lost all auspicious qualities because you are maintaining offense personified. Purusha Dvit, and his dosha Purusha Dvit, because of his Dvit, of his envy, that was Krishna, he was offense personified. That was the position of Duryodhan. And you're maintaining. And actually he tells him you should get rid of him. Let us see what he says. And because you are just maintaining a non-devotee of Krishna, you are devoid of all auspicious qualities. You relieve yourself of this ill fortune as soon as possible. So he told him to get rid of his son. Banish him, send him somewhere, remove him from his position. Relieve yourself of this ill fortune as soon as possible and do good to the whole family. Yeah, that was the advice that was given to him. And I'm going to give an advice to the devotees who's on this class. And it's going to be heavy. I don't think you actually meant to study Bhagavatam like that. Most of you. This is not the way you study Bhagavatam. You study Bhagavatam, you sit peacefully. You know, most of you are going in and out of your this is you have to be sent the rules. Is you have to have your table, you have to sit at your table, you have to have your book, and you have to stop fiddling with your phones. That's why actually Dhir Damodar Maharaj doesn't want to teach, and Srivas doesn't want to teach, and I don't want to teach unless you change the rules. Prabhu, reading Srimad Bhagavatam is the most important, probably studying for Bhakti Vaibhava. Even at the VIH level, 30, 40 devotees, only 15 left at the end to study. It's not a joke. But if you're sitting comfortably on your sofa, then you can forget it. If you're sitting and walking all over the place, you can also forget it. First of all, studying Bhakti Vaibhava is you go all the way to Vrindavan, all the way to a classroom, and you sit and you study. Now we are giving it an opportunity to study in the comfort of our homes. Now we're taking it 10 steps down. None of you can actually peacefully sit at your desk and don't fiddle. You should wear your dhoti kurta, you should put your tilak on, and you should have your books and you should have your notes, and you're sitting in the comfort of your house only 4 hours a week to get Bhakti Vaibhava. You won't make it. None of you will make it like this. Sorry to put it like that. I've been teaching for 40 years, I can tell. So if you don't want to study it, then cancel the course. You know, and devotees have so much opportunity to teach and preach that you should actually dress up like devotee, put your tilak on, sit comfortably, and you should have your body looking like I am sitting here, and have your notes and have your book, and every 5 minutes, someone, you know how disturbing it is to the teacher? First of all, I'm not in front of you. Secondly, you're all fiddling with the phone. Everything is moving, right? So instead of having 4 devotees attentively, even if you have 2 devotees attentively listening, you can actually have a nice conversation, right? So why is it that the phone of, for example, Jyoti Swarup Prabhu always moving? Why is it not fixed on a stand? Why is the light not clear on devotee there? Why is Chitraputra Prabhu's video is not on? And so you can't do like this. I'm sorry to say. I give 4 or 5 hours class every day, and I did here from my place. I have a class tonight. And I don't flinch and I don't budge, because that's what I do. I study. I have my computer in front of me. Here, my computer, right? I have my iPad in front of me. I have my study notes in front of me. I have my guidebook in front of me. I have my notebook in front of me. And I'm teaching. I'm not studying. I can just speak freely, right? And I have my pencil. I'm sorry if I speak like this. And I have my ruler if I have to make notes. I have everything. And so that I don't have silly lights, I have a proper light on this side, so you can see my eyes. I have a light on this side and a light on that side. So we've created all these facilities so you can study perfectly peacefully from your home, but you're all fiddling. You're like, you know, in primary school. This is supposed to be a master's degree class. So unless the devotees get their acts together, you can't study this Bhakti Vaibhava Prabhu. Sorry. So unless physically you can set yourself up at your table, no point. Am I right, Shalika? Maybe no one said that to all of you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Krishna Prabhu. After you said this, because this has been the concern. it has been a big concern because Chaitanya Prema Prabhu himself is very frustrated because he had to spend thousands of dollars to go to Vrindavan, to Mayapur to study. We knew what the standards are. And then I guess because most of us never had the opportunity to go to Mayapur or Vrindavan to study, so we don't have the experience. So we are all learning. And I'm happy you're saying it because it will be good. When Madhusudan Prabhu, Vishnu Madhusudan Prabhu was teaching the last unit, and this was his complaint. At a point, he said he was no longer going to teach. So, because he said, this cannot be. I cannot teach when the students are not attentive, when the students are not physically looking at me. So I'm happy you also are saying it. It is part of what we've discussed with Chaitanya Prema Prabhu, that we're going to have to reschedule, not reschedule, reschedule the standard.
Yeah. Bhakti Vaibhava study is no casual study, Prabhu. Ain't not a casual study. Prabhupada said, someone wants to be guru, study for Bhakti Vaibhava. But actually now their standards are being put up. That someone wants to take sannyas, they have to. Lately it was only Bhakti Vai Shastri, now it's Bhakti Vaibhava. So we cannot fiddle. We have to be serious. We have to be seriously studying. So sometimes also devotees don't have the intellectual capacity, because you can also study for enjoyment. There's three ways you can study Srimad Bhagavatam. You can study seriously to make advancement. You can study to get knowledge, or you can study for enjoyment. So we have to see, if you have only 4 students, but the 4 students are really together, then it's a joy to teach, because you can teach even one person, right? But if the students are not committed, they don't come on time, they're not properly dressed, and they're taking it casually, then it is not honoring Srimad Bhagavatam. That's why the classes are not going well. Maybe Srivas Prabhu didn't say much, but maybe I've spoken on his behalf too. And so you guys have to get it together. I apologize for being so frank, but it is my duty.
Thank you very much. It is duty of the teacher. That is part of the. I'm aware that if, according to the standard of examination checked by MIHE, every aspect of the course has a mark rating. Attendance has its marks, appearance has its marks, attentiveness has its marks. But I'm quite unfortunate because Chaitanya Prema, who is the coordinator himself, is also studying. Most of the time, he's not able to be there to study this different aspect of the students'
No, but
appearance.
Sharika Prabhu, it is not rocket science. The teacher and the students, that's the main thing. The administration is there, not there, that's not a problem. But the students have to be told clearly, you want to study, then you have to have your video on, nice, clean, straight. You have to have devotional clothes on, nice, clean, straight. You have to have the book on, and your video has to stop fiddling. And please, if you fix your phone, even if you have just a phone, Prabhu, even if you have a phone, if your phone is fixed on a table like that, then it's not disturbing, and you're concentrating on the subject matter. You have your book, I have my iPad here all the time. You see, I study from my iPad here, and my whole Bhagavatam is in there, and I have my notes on this side. So you should do the same thing. I'm also a student. I can tell, so you have to get this together. You have to get this together and make sure that the devotees know the code. Otherwise, it's not going to last. So why waste our time if it is not going to last?
Thank you.
I'm compassionate toward my students. I love teaching. This is what I do. So you can't have this kind of indiscipline and study Bhakti Vaibhava. It will become a laughing stock. Okay.
Thank you.
So if you have it all sorted out, then then we can teach. First of all, you have a problem also because of standards there, and then on top of that, then you have indiscipline. Then you won't enjoy the class. It will be like a burden for long, and then after a while you will drop off, because we only carry on doing something if it is joyful, and the joy of Bhagavatam is into attentive hearing and really appreciative, humble mood, ears, heart wide open to want to get the knowledge. I mean, I'm speaking from my own personal experience. I'm not talking anything rhetoric here. I and it's a joy to study Bhagavatam, but we have to get the right mindset and have the right setup created for us. So please forgive me if I'm frank, but because we see we started with about 30 students. We've VIH, and yesterday the devotee was saying it's only 14. The course is intense course. This is a 5-year, 6. You're only studying twice. We're studying 2 hours every day. You're only studying twice a week. And if you're studying twice a week and you cannot sit for 4 hours, then it's an issue. Sometimes devotees are studying 4 hours. I'm generally studying 2 hours and I'm teaching 4 hours. But this has been the most distressing class I've given. My mind was very all over the place because, it was distressing because there was so much distraction in the screen, so much movement in the screen where there should have been no movement at all, like that. So please sort it out, and we will be happy to serve you all. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Maharaj.
Gandharaj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.
We're deeply sorry for missing this.
We are very sorry. Maybe the first will be like this for the first time, but I'm assured. I said, being the first lecture you are giving us, it can be like that, but I'm assuring you that second lecture, you definitely see progress. Hare Krishna.
So we work on ourselves, and then
we have to. Otherwise, devotees have to, sometimes, you devotees just finished Bhakti Shastri, and it takes a little. The idea of this study is not just academic. No, it is not just a question of getting the certificate. And a lot of in many situations it is like that. People just come for certificates, and it doesn't work in the long run. It's actually a disservice, because then you will tell people, I've already done Bhakti Vaibhava, I don't need to study again. And there is that problem everywhere we go. People have studied Bhakti Vaibhava, some teachers have come and given crash courses, and within 1 year, 3 months study, they've just given Bhakti Vaibhava, and then they don't want to hear Bhagavatam from anyone else. Then their life is wasted. It's very dangerous. Their life is wasted. There's some interesting opportunities for properly studying Srimad Bhagavatam comes, and they said, well, I forgot my certificate. Then the life is wasted. Then the opportunity to be properly Krishna conscious. We've been cheated because we acted like cheaters. So we should not try to cheat Krishna. So otherwise we will be cheated. We'll be cheated of this wonderful opportunity. Yep. Okay, Prabhus, I have to go. Thank you so much. But we will talk again. Shalika Prabhu will communicate, and we'll see what can happen. Hare Krishna.
Okay.